Let's clear the air about EVs with Kia.
I used to think going electric meant giving something up. Space, range, the third row. Then I drove the Kia EV9. I work in tech, so another screen doesn't impress me. But this is useful. I use my phone as the key, and the new remote smart parking helps with North Beach spots that look more like dares than spaces. And with over 300 miles of range, I'm not planning my day around charging stations.
Smart where it counts. The Kia EV9 is built for the way the Bay Area moves. Find your EV confidence at kia.com. Kia, movement that inspires.
Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Margrave, Georgia, and Amazon Prime's Reacher. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that on today's flight, we are listening to one artist and one artist only, Blind Blake. And if you don't like it, you have to deal with the 6'5" colossus of a man controlling the PA system.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer. Max, how are you doing today?
Reacher? I hardly know her. Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows.
Jesus Christ. No. Keep on going. For folks who are here for the first time, or maybe for folks who are here to listen to us talk about Amazon Prime's Reacher, what is this podcast all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and make you want to watch more if they're made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
Well, Max, before we dive too deep into this show, the synopsis, how it was made, some fun in-flight questions that we got, I have a question for you. This is a very particular type of show, and it's
how do you mean?
it is based off of a book that I like to call dad books, and there's a couple of genres of dad books, right? There are I feel like as a father that is like middle-aged, you have to like either obsess about one battle in World War II, or you read like Tom Clancy or Lee Fields or James Patterson, and like, have you ever read one of those books, or like, do you have any familiarity with this type of genre of TV show?
This is definitely a dad category that I have not dipped my toes into the water with. I have read an excellent historical book about a ship. I have read a book about a boat, but I have not gotten into this like spy, army, mercenary type of book that I think is sold in places other than Hudson News and airports. I believe you can get them outside of an airport.
I was about to say, I feel like there are some barber shops that also potentially sell this. You also get a bourbon or a whiskey while you're getting your hair cut, and they offer you this while you're sitting in the waiting room. But this also very much is like, I do find it very funny, right? You have Jack Reacher, and then you also have Jack Ryan, and they are both featured on Amazon Prime.
I'm not gonna lie, when we did this, when we picked this show, at first I was kind of like, oh, I can't believe they've already rebooted the thing with Krasinski. I can't. The Krasinski method.
Well, it's so funny too, because it's just like, tell me the difference between these two shows. I'm gonna just give a synopsis from me. We have two tall men that are very handsome and very built, that are going through blowing shit up and like also have military background. Which of those is Jack Reacher and which of those is Jack Ryan? Is the and the answer is one is blonde and the other is brunette. There you go.
Yeah, if you're someone who, reads one book a year, or you're someone who maybe just gets the next installment as a gift for your father-in-law, you're going to enjoy today's episode.
Yeah, this one's a great one, and I would just say buckle up. But before we dive too deep into the world of Jack Reacher, a quick word from our sponsor.
Best thing that's ever happened to you financially. Go.
Easy. Sold my car on Carvana. Amazing offer.
Really? I hit 200 on the scratcher.
Did the scratcher come to your house and hand you a check?
No.
How many scratchers did you hit to get that? I hit a button on Carvana.com. once.
Okay, that's fair.
It's like the lottery, except you always win.
Not like the lottery at all, actually.
Exactly. Inexplicably good. Offers worth bragging about. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Reacher. Just if I already said it, but just in case you missed it, if you want to watch this episode before you listen to this episode of TVPL, you can find all of Reacher on Amazon Prime. Let's start off with a quick synopsis. Internant former military policeman Jack Reacher solves crimes and metes out his own brand of street justice based on the novels by Lee Child, which, yeah, we definitely watched that. But Max, can you tell us a little bit about how this show got made?
Today, we're talking about the pilot episode of Reacher titled Welcome to Margrave, which originally aired on February 4th, 2022 on Prime. This title is not to be confused with the 2018 Robert Zemeckis film, Welcome to Marwyn. So we're going to be talking about the show's creator, Nick Santora, a bit more today. Santora practiced law for 6 years in New York City until a screenplay he wrote won a competition at a film festival, sparking his decision to quit law and move to Los Angeles to pursue writing. As a staff writer, credits include The Sopranos, Law & Order, Lie to Me, and Prison Break. Santora is also the creator of the CBS drama Scorpion and penned the feature comedy The Long Shots, starring Ice Cube and directed by Fred Durst. His latest sports feature, Mr. Irrelevant, the John Tuggle story, arrives in theaters on Christmas Day. This is by no means the first adaptation of the Jack Reacher book series.
Thank you.
First published in 1997 and now spanning 30 books, Lee Child's series of novels tells the story of Jack Reacher, a retired U.S. Army major now traveling the country, taking on odd jobs and investigating crimes and suspicious situations. The books have sold over 100 million copies worldwide to date. The rights to the books were originally acquired by Paramount Pictures, with the first script penned by Oscar nominee John Olson, A History of Violence, before being rewritten and directed by Oscar winner Christopher McQuarrie, The Usual Suspects, and later Mission Impossible films. Starring Tom Cruise, the 2012 film would go on to gross over $200 million at the box office. When asked about Cruise being only 5'7" when the character was written as 6'5", Childs responded, Reacher's size in the books is a metaphor for his unstoppable force, which Cruise portrays in his own way. A second film, Jack Reacher Never Go Back, was released in 2014. In 2018, Childs announced a deal with Skydance Television and Paramount TV for a new series based around his novels. On the decision to reboot and recast, Childs said, I really enjoyed working with Cruise. He's a really, really nice guy. We had a lot of fun. But ultimately, the readers are right. The size of Reacher is really, really important, and it's a big component of who he is. So
Yeah,
I've decided to do is, there won't be any more movies with Tom Cruise. He went back on it. He tried to spin it, but ultimately, Cruise, 5'7". That's not Jack Reacher.
I like that he specifically said big in reference to the height and stature of Reacher, because, you know, this is a writer. This is if he's a
he
great...
knew what he was doing. He
was doing
those
a good
words
job
carefully. In July 2019, the series was officially announced as Reacher, and it was ordered a series in January 2020 based on the first novel in the series, Killing Floor. That fall, 6'2" actor Alan Ritchson was cast in the titular role. Principal photography took place in the summer of 2021 in North Pickering, Ontario, with the entire town of Margrave being built from scratch on a local farm. Today's pilot is directed by Thomas Vincent, a BAFTA nominee for his work on the series The Bodyguard.
Yeah, I do love... I remember when it was announced that Tom Cruise was playing Jack Reacher, knowing nothing about these books, and the amount of absolute chaos that was like, it was very much a Reddit 4chan, like Twitter conversation of like, I can't believe that they would think that Tom Cruise can pass for Jack Reacher. And I mean, if you put Tom Cruise and Alan Ritchson next to each other, I don't think you're going to be like, boy, both of these guys can play the same characters no matter what.
Yeah, Tom Cruise's Reacher is for things on the top shelf, folks.
Oh, but dumb. Well, let's dive into the show a little bit more. And I want to start off with, you know, we've had cold opens before for this podcast that are maybe flush with exposition, right? Maybe we get a narration over a faceless narration of what we're going to see. Boy, was this show not that, where we just see a man get straight up killed in a field. And then, Max, I have a game for you. How long before we hear Jack Reacher say a single word once he appears on screen?
Oh my goodness. I actually like this cold open. I like that we just sort of build an ominous feeling of something being afoot in this small town. I think that you're setting up a mystery, and you don't need to know the players. You don't need to know who's good or who's bad or whether or not Reacher's involved with this. But just knowing that there is trouble in this small town, and then you get some muddy, dirty blues guitar, which feels like some real treachery is afoot kind of music as we get to meet our protagonist. I'm going to say, though, because this is a tall, silent man, I don't believe he speaks until, I'm going to say, 7 minutes into this episode.
You are so close. It's 6 minutes and 38 seconds on the dot. So well done, sir. But I have a second question for you. While we're waiting to hear Jack Reacher speak, he goes to a diner. We see this mysterious, looming, large figure walk into a diner, and he gets two things: peach pie and a cup of coffee. How are you grading that diner breakfast order, or maybe you making some alterations for yourself?
A plus diner order, especially if it's the recommended pie from the server. A plus order. This is the largest man I've ever seen in my life.
Yes. Yeah. Go for it. Well,
obviously, like in film, most people are 5'8" with big heads. And Alan Ritchson is already 6'2", but this is maybe the most imposing figure I have ever seen on screen. When he is sitting in that booth, it is like watching a grown man at a toddler table, and he holds that fork. Like, have you ever seen the pictures of Andre the Giant holding a beer can? That's how Alan Ritchson holds a fork to eat pie.
I do. There's a small part of me, two things. One, there's a small part of me that wonders if they did a little bit of forced perspective to make him look even bigger than he was. Like, you get someone a jacket that's a little bit smaller than what actually fits them. Maybe you have a fork that you're like, oh, this looks very teeny tiny in his hands. They definitely did some with him when he was next to Willa Fitzgerald, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. But also, it is very well known, and Alan Ritchson is super upfront about how he started taking TRT right while he was doing this. So he was just getting larger and larger. And
yeah, the one actor who was just like, yeah, I'm juicing. I'm like, this is not natural.
Yeah, I'm on so many steroids right now. And like, he's getting larger and larger. And you just see the photos of him from now versus the first season. And how it's just like, how do you add like 5 inches to your jaw width? Like, I don't know how you do that.
I want to go back to your comment on forced perspectives and how they make him look large, because they built this entire town from scratch. They had a production crew who built this. And it is entirely possible that they built this diner with like 7-foot ceilings.
Oh, 100%. That would be amazing if they were like, all right, so Alan, it's a little bit of like a tight space to get in here, but it's going to look great when you stand up for the first time.
We bought a bunch of toddler trading forks, took off the plastic handles, and gave them a nice silver brush on them so they look like actual flatware. We built all the booths smaller than they should be, and we've essentially done this like fun house mirror situation of a diner to make him feel larger than life.
I'm now just thinking about those tiny cooking videos, and that's how they made the pie for him. They just made the tiniest version of a pie, and we're like, hey, we're going to put this right here. We're so sorry. We have a real pie for you a little bit later if you'd want a piece. But, as we see this mysterious colossus of a man walk into this diner, mere moments later, we see him arrested, and we get the understanding of, hey, trouble seems to follow Reacher around, but not before we see this all conclude in a local sheriff's department. if that makes sense. And this is where I would say we run into something that I noticed, and I'm curious because I have it in my notes. It feels like this show is two shows that are slapped together, very much so. Because while we have this Jack Reacher character, and we have some of these like cops that very much give like the dumb cops in a local town, we're introduced to Detective Finley, who is wearing a tweed suit, who is much more intense than everyone else and much more verbacious than everyone else. And I'm curious if you caught that tonal shift of maybe while Reacher sticks out as a metaphorical giant, there's also someone else who sticks out, and it's our dear detective.
Yeah, you have this character in Finley who, and we've established this dynamic so many times in film and TV, where it's the real, like, by the book, smooth talking, strict man of the law, and this potential vigilante or criminal who's this genius who's assisting. We just talked about this exact same dynamic with White Collar. We've talked about this, not as much cat and mousey, but the sort of like rivalry and respect between the man of the law and the man who is trying to either evade or prove innocence. And yes, Finley also sticks out like a sore thumb. You have these two characters who are going to have to learn to work together, learn to get along, who both feel like such fish out of water that anytime they meet and sit down, it feels like the whole situation could combust at any moment.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. But this is also, while we get this introduction to Finley, who's trying to figure out, right, it's the easiest person to pin a crime on, this stranger who walked in town, who's gigantic, who we get some details about this murder that we see at the beginning of this show. We get to see that Reacher not only is a big guy, he's a big guy with a big brain for detail. And I want to hear from you, because as soon as we start being like, oh, this man is a superhero, like this man is a genuine superhero that's walking around in the middle of nowhere, Georgia.
I do have a bone to pick with the just how big is Jack Reacher talk, because he comes to this police station and they ask him why he's zip tied, and like the cops goes, cuffs didn't fit him. I'm sorry, this man is just 6'5". Like, you treat him like he's Paul Bunyan. When you're 6'5", commercial airline seats are uncomfortable. Finding a good waist to pants length ratio is probably a little bit difficult, but you can get handcuffs on the guy. Treating him like he is truly non-human is so funny to me. But yes, this is the first scene where I think we get into extreme dad book territory, where not only is he the biggest guy, not only is he the toughest guy, but he's smooth talking. He can take apart your argument with perception and intellect and cutting linguistics. He is just the most manly man and intellectual man that you could possibly imagine, who I think only exists in airport books.
Yeah, it very much just gives the idea of, this is what every dad thinks they are. Like, this is what every dad thinks that like every single dad is just like, yeah, I'm also Alan Ritchson. I've never worked out a day in my life. My back hurts when I stand up, but I also recognize every detail that is happening every single moment of the day. Like, it was a moment, and like, I'm looking at my notes, and just like this interaction of like, you see Finley and he almost is acting in the superior manner, because it's just like, oh, big man is big oaf. Like we associate 2 + 2, but then we have the twist of, oh, Reacher is just as smart as you, if not even smarter than you are. And
yeah, they set him up like
yeah.
this Lenny of Mice and Men character where it's like, oh, he's the big lug who doesn't talk and he's not going to contribute anything. And then he puts on the metaphorical reading glasses and just proceeds to read every officer and lawman and person he encounters to absolute filth for the next hour.
It is so funny. But Max, when we signed up for Reacher, did you think we were also going to sign up for Young Reacher and get a flashback to
I
a
don't
military
know how
base?
I don't know how you do a backdoor pilot in your pilot for another series.
What did you think of the flashback that we got? Because it does sort of like in a very weird way set up the idea of, boy, does trouble just find Reacher.
Oh my God.
But like, I want to hear from you because I could go on for it for 5 to 10 hours.
The transition that fades into this flashback sequence, and before we are clearly in frame, just hearing this voice going, Reacher, why does trouble always seem to find you? I died. I burst out laughing. It is just so funny to me, this idea of all he's known his life is trouble. Everywhere he goes, trouble follows him. And he wasn't always this big, but he was always tall for his age. It is a scene that, to me, does not add anything to this pilot, because we don't make flashbacks a reoccurring thing in it. It only really shows that he will get into fights to defend the integrity and honor of people. Like he's willing to fight, he's willing to get rough, but he does it with good intention. And that he has a brother who we don't actually learn anything about.
It's also so funny you say that, because like while they do establish that, halfway through the pilot, they reiterate everything that we learned.
Yes.
In the flashback, where he's just like, oh yeah, by the way, like, I have a brother. I don't know where the fuck he is. Yeah, I grew up on military bases. My mom even called me Reacher, which the moment that she did that, I was just like, wait a minute. Like, I've heard of that happening sometimes, but I was like, your kid has a first name. You probably
do you
chose
call
it.
the other one John? Like, do you call the other one by his name and he's Reacher? I also want to apologize to anyone who does watch this pilot or watch this show. I did a very stereotypical, like, Southern farm, like Green Acres voice when the mother is German for some reason. So I do want to apologize for getting my farm accents wrong.
But this show does, it is interesting, right? Because if we look at this show so far and what we've got mystery. We've got a little bit of like, hey, who is this Reacher fellow? In the idea of traditional detective versus streetwise detective, which we've seen before in television. But everything changes after we meet this banker character, a false confession, and we're going to prison for the evening. What are your feelings as we start to ramp up the idea of inviting more people into the mystery of this dead body?
We obviously have to ramp it up to start putting pieces together, explaining what's going on here, but we don't do that. Instead, we have this character of Hubble, who I think is another stereotype of these types of stories, where he is the meek nerd who is caught up in something way above his head. He's not as slick talking, but it kind of reminds me of the role Adam Brody plays in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where it's just 100%. Kind of like, it's sort of just like the dork who's caught up in the high stakes world. And God, this is one of my pet peeves. When we just say things like, I'm really important to the operation, and they say they're going to kill me, and like, you don't know what they're capable of, or like, you don't know what they're doing. It's like, but I want to. I'm the audience. Tell me what they're capable of. Tell me what they're going to do. I don't need you to like spoon feed it to me, but at a certain point, just tell me what the crime is. Tell me what the syndicate does. Tell me who the people are. Like, I am aware that we're doing an entire novel over the course of this season, but come on, give me a little something here.
Yeah, the only thing that this scene with Hubble with the false confession gives us is the sense that there is a big bad, right? There is this force that we're not going to meet probably in episode 1 that exists within this world that like causes this false confession. But, you know, Max, what if I told you this isn't only a mystery show? This is there's some action that we're getting ready for. Maybe some action and a little bit of comedy, because we're making our way to the county prison. And before I wax poetically, what are your thoughts about our county prison experience that we get for like 20 minutes of this pilot?
Oh, Reacher, why does trouble always seem to find you? Obviously, you have to put Hubble in prison, and you have to watch. When did this become like a buddy cop comedy? Like when did okay, so tangent. We're scrapping the original thought. When did this suddenly become Reacher and Hubble slapstick, where it's two guys on the inside and Reacher having to comically protect Hubble? Because I don't care about their dynamic. I don't care about these two having a budding friendship, and I feel like I'm supposed to because they're trying so hard to, but I don't know how you feel. Like, are you into this as becoming the buddy crime comedy?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think that I didn't see it as much as a buddy crime comedy as much as there appears to be a certain sense of honor that Reacher has that he like almost unwillingly has to take on throughout this pilot. And as soon as he sees something wrong, not so much like anywhere, but within like a 5-foot vicinity of him, he's like, fuck, I have to be Reacher now. Like that is what we get.
Gotta start
in
reaching.
This pilot. Yeah, he's like, I guess I gotta start reaching for that guy's face and pummel it. Because like as soon as there's a couple things that we get, right? Like we got that very interesting intake to the prison scene where the guard tries to search their anal cavities, which was the first, like one of the first couple attempts at humor in this pilot that I was like, that's a great dad joke, but it's not for me.
Reacher knew a lot of legality around anal cavity searches off the dome.
Yeah, almost a concerning amount about anal cavity searches that you have to ask, like, hey, what are you doing in your free time, Reacher, other than knowing about obscure jazz musicians when you're in Tampa Bay or Tampa, Florida, as well as obviously working out every other minute of the day. But the first, I want to talk about the action, because the prison sequence that we get is our invitation for action for this show, and seeing some really interesting fight choreography as well as like close up combat. And I want to hear from you, because I think that's what a lot of people think of this show as, is it's just like, ooh, big people fighting, right? Like fist to fist combat, maybe a shank involved. But what did you think of this hand-to-hand combat that we get throughout this pilot?
I thought this show was going to be exponentially more guns blasting and fists flying and things closer to what we saw in these two prison sequences. I think that they are both important in showing that Reacher can do two things. He can take down a man with a single blow if he wants to, and he can also take on like a John Wick level of baddies simultaneously. Because for the sheer number of shanks that were drawn on him in that second bathroom fight, he's just punching people. And he takes, I think, maybe one small scrape to the face in that entire sequence. And I think, if anything, I'm glad that we don't see it until we get maybe halfway into the pilot of what he's what he's capable of physically. I appreciate that earlier on when we see outside the diner, there is a man berating and threatening a woman against a van, that Reacher breaks up the entire conflict by just standing there. His sheer reach is enough to disarm this man and to get him to apologize to Reacher, if anything, which is crazy. And we get through a few sequences of that before we actually see him come to blows with anyone. We see him use his size for intimidation, and we see him use his intellect to disarm people before the fists. And I do think that is important, that it's not John Wick. It's not that he just takes out villains. There are layers to Reacher, and the violence is the other side of the coin.
Yeah, I do want to say I was really impressed with I love good fight choreography. It is so fun to see someone who appreciates good fight choreography and who puts it together. And as much as in the prison cell, it's a quick 2-punch, you're down sort of thing. He hit him in the head with his elbow, then he hit him to a bedpost, and then that guy was, basically mush. A little bit more complicated in the shower scene, but still, I was like, oh, this is fun. This is very much as you said, John Wick with fists, but I am here seated for it. And I'm glad it was not everything, because then it's a little bit diluted and you're not going to appreciate it as much as, if you get that 2-3 minutes maximum in an entire episode of television.
Yeah, I think that if you just have this being the Jack Reacher fight hour, you don't really have a show. You have to prioritize the other elements that make him a more dynamic character, and then save these little tidbits where it's okay, and now here comes the fisticuffs, here comes the brawl, here comes Reacher versus whoever the next baddie of the week is.
Yeah, well, Max, we get out of prison. We figure out that, hey, these two guys weren't supposed to be in Gen Pop. But there's another character that we haven't talked about too much that I want to talk about a little bit more, which is this Roscoe Conklin character played by Willa Fitzgerald, who seems to really take a liking to Reacher. And maybe it is that of a friendship. Maybe there are intentions for it to be romantic later in this show. But what did you think of this unlikely partnership as opposed to the one that we see with Hubble and Finley for Reacher?
Well, Geoff, I want to start by saying you might be wondering, there couldn't possibly be some sort of Prime Video extended universe with Roscoe at the center of it, could there? But as we know, Roscoe Conklin is a long-lost cousin of Belly and Stephen Conklin from The Summer I Turned Pretty. And the movie that they're currently filming is actually a Summer I Turned Pretty and Reacher crossover film.
Oh my God.
Bringing Roscoe into the world of Cousins Beach.
Yeah, you say that and you're saying it as a joke, but am I going to watch the Summer I Turned Pretty movie? 100%. Would I watch it with Roscoe added in and it turned into an action movie? Yeah, no shit. I'm there. I'm in the front row, regardless of if there's a middle row available, because I'm just going to be mouth agape eating popcorn that entire time.
Yeah, I want to see how Prime could pull that off. I like this character though of Roscoe. I like the one person on the inside who sees Reacher for who he is, the person who goes to bat for him, the person who wants to trust him and wants him to trust in return. And I think these scenes are endearing in a way. The person who is willing to defend him, who takes him shopping. We get the one obligation Alan Ritchson shirtless scene
there
in
are
the
two. There are two scenes.
You are required to show that giant man shirtless for at least one scene.
Yeah.
But I think it's nice to give him an ally, because obviously he's going to continue to butt heads and have conflict with Finley. You need someone that he can trust, and Roscoe Conklin, I think, checks that box.
Well, I want to talk about we've seen Reacher be physically dominant. We have seen him be, in some instances, mentally dominant, but we find a foe of his, or we're introduced to one in town who might be able to best him mentally. We find out about this Kleiner family who seems to run everything in town in some shape or form, and there seems to be some foreboding threats while a man is being given a shave, which I don't appreciate. I think a close shave is a very, very sacred ritual. But what do you think about the introduction of maybe the villain of this show won't be able to overtake Reacher physically, but he might be able to make him uncomfortable in other ways?
This feels like such a stereotypical plot of these Southern down-home action shows or crime shows where it's like, it's the evil family who's descended from the person who founded the town. And there's definitely Confederate traces in that family. And somehow they have control of overall the major businesses, and they have their hands in everything, and they're getting kickbacks on the side, and they've got informants in the police department. I've seen this whole song and dance before, but I appreciate that we get the first glimpse of perhaps Reacher is a flawed hero in a way, that there's something in his past, there's something that he's trying to make amends for, that we've established through Roscoe that along with all of his military background as a major, he also has had a hand in bringing a lot of criminals into court. They don't really quite say how he did it, but that no one that Reacher has ever had a hand in bringing to justice, like that case has never been lost. So he's doing good for some reason, and perhaps there's something in his past that he's trying to make amends for, which makes him a conflicted hero. It adds some depth to him, and I do like this tease of what did Reacher do? Why is he making these amends, perhaps?
Well, Max, as we start to build and color in this universe a little bit more of what Reacher is going to be dealing with in season 1 of this show, we get 2 twists to end this episode. The first being, there's a second body that has appeared. And we'll talk a little bit about who that appears to be. But the second being, Harvey Guillen shows up in this pilot, and I want to know if you were just as surprised as I was to see him with a Southern accent to boot.
Harvey Guillen as Jasper the medical examiner wearing a Savannah Bananas t-shirt was the least expected thing of this pilot. You could have told me that, hey, there is a cameo from a comedy you love in this show, and you could have given me 100 guesses, and I don't think I would have landed on Harvey Guillen in a million years. And it is, I don't know, he's so cherubic. He's so delightful.
It was such a delightful role, and I hope he's in the entire season, because like it was just so funny for him to be like, oh yeah, this is the first murder that I've actually dealt with in this town.
I also appreciate making a character a medical examiner, but not having them do anything that is related to their job whatsoever, just saying he's a medical examiner. Were you as appreciative of this cameo as I was?
Oh, I thought this was one of my favorite characters in this episode, because it was such a refreshing, like, just like, it wasn't dad coded, that was that is me coded, that is like and that that's is a perfect character for me.
When I think about who the targeted audience of Reacher is, when I think about the perception of this show, because this is my first time watching it, I've never anything Reacher, actually I haven't seen either of the Tom Cruise films either, but when I think about this show in particular, there is perhaps a stereotype that I assume with the audience that this show is marketed at. Sure. And I also don't find them to be fans of the journey that, you know, that Guillermo went on for many seasons on What We Do in the Shadows. It's a very small Venn diagram.
Well, shout out to Harvey. Absolutely adored that role in this episode. But Max, I mentioned there's one other twist, and you know how we talked about Reacher having a brother? It turns out we are never going to see that brother alive in current times, because he is DEA dead in this show. So what do you think about this reveal, as this is like our last moment in this pilot, and it sort of sets the tone of, are you going to watch episode 2 when the big Reacher on a black screen shows up?
I think that the twist is warranted. I think that you have to make it personal. You have to tie Reacher into this story when he's kind of spent the last hour trying to distance himself from it, which I think is important because you do spend a lot of this pilot with Reacher having this alibi of why he's in this town and trying to remove himself from the situation. He is caught up in this, but once he's out of there, once Roscoe gets him out of jail, once his alibi is proven as being true, it is clear that he wants to just get back to why he came here in the first place. But as a wise woman once said, Geoff, Reacher, why does trouble always seem to find you?
Yeah, and that is how we end our pilot, with an understanding that maybe, hey, while Blind Blake is a great reason to visit Margrave, maybe he's not the entire reason that Reacher is visiting Margrave. But Max, that is this pilot that we watched. I'm curious if there were any things that you loved about this pilot that maybe you wanted to give a little bit more shine to.
Man, I dig the baseball card stats of Reacher's accomplishments as a major in the Army because they are so over the top, and it's one of those moments that you're watching where I just felt like such a dad being like, hell yeah, this guy rules, where it's just like they go through everything that he did. I think one of them is that he ran into a burning
Purple
building.
Heart, like he had shrapnel of like a jaw in his ribs or something.
He had
like that.
Extreme smoke inhalation and shrapnel in his gut, and then resumed combat 32 hours later. It's so over the top. But as far as the lore building of Jack Reacher, I think that they are effective in making this person seem like a myth in many ways.
Yeah, for myself, I do really appreciate. I know we joke like, oh, hey, he didn't talk for the first 6 minutes and 38 seconds of this pilot. There's something really cool about that much time being dead, like silent for your main character, and Alan Ritchson pulling it off entirely, right? Like that's good writing, that's good directing, and that is good acting. And those first 6 minutes or so were very powerful in setting the tone of like, hey, what is this world? Who is this character? And we got that. And hey, it's a great way to start an episode of TV. But let's talk a little bit about wait a minute moments, things that cause you pause. Were there any for you, or was this a perfect pilot and no notes?
I think this is awfully filmed. I think that this is such poor, boring cinematography. And to get into what I'm trying to explain here, every single shot, and Reacher is not the only show guilty of this, it's becoming more of a problem, every single shot is just framed dead center. There's no composition to sequences whatsoever. Anytime someone enters, we cut and then recut to when they're dead center. And I think I did want to buy into this conspiracy theory that shows are doing this so that they could be cut for vertical facing, or that they work on smartphones, or that Prime can promote clips from Reacher on TikTok and things like that. But there's no other answer. Every single conversation scene, anytime that him and Finley are talking, the cuts are from one angle both ways. There's no additional capture of these scenes. They don't shoot from any other direction. It's just the same angle reversed with both of them dead center. Even the bathroom fight sequence, it felt like there were more cuts than putting together paper snowflakes. It was just constantly quick cuts, center framing, and there's just no composition to anything being filmed, to a point that I found this surprisingly boring to watch at times.
Yeah, it is interesting you bring that up, because this is a 55-minute pilot.
Oh, boy.
And also, if you don't pay for that second tier of Amazon Prime, boy, are they going to give you a minute and a half of ads every like 10 minutes or so. So you're spending an hour plus watching this show, and it feels every minute like an hour plus. And that is tough. There needs to be, for my attention and for my sake, there needs to be a lot more car crashes or a lot more jokes that are happening in this pilot for me to be like, oh yeah, you know what? I had a great time. And that sucks because some of the performances in this show were good performances that were let down by other parts of the show maybe being a little bit lesser than. But Max, you know what tends to help something that might not seem that great? Beer. And that brings us to our in-flight question this week. Our in-flight question this week comes from Jake from Florida. And Jake says, this feels like a beer drinking show. What are some of your other favorite shows to watch with a beer? So
hell
Max,
yeah, Jake. Hell yeah, brother.
Jake is asking the right questions. And so, Max, I have to ask our in-flight question, what shows do you think you have to have a beer with in order to watch and enjoy?
Eastbound and Down. Easy answer. Right,
that's a
Sharpie.
great.
That is one where all you want to do is drink a cold beer and quote the lines that you remember along with the characters. Season 1 of Eastbound and Down, a couple of brewskis, and you're in for a good time. That is absolutely my choice.
Yeah, for myself, if we're gonna talk about like that area of faux like reality TV show, I have to say,
I like where this is going.
I have to say Bar Rescue. You have to have a beer in hand when you're watching Bar Rescue because like that is a show where you should be drinking while you're watching it. I'm also going to throw in American Ninja Warrior in there. That is very much, you have to have a beer while you're watching that show. I don't care if they have like the kids division now where they're just like, oh, he's 13 and he's more athletic than you ever will be. And I'm like, I don't care. This is a beer drinking show.
I want to be 2 beers deep with American Ninja Warrior on, just going, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, 100%. What do you mean he took a hoop and jumped 10 feet in the air and perfectly placed it on a single ring? I can do that one try, no practice whatsoever. But
I think any of those, like, give me a Wipeout with a couple of beers in hand.
There used to be, what was that? I'm going to bring up Spike TV, which also Bar Rescue on Spike TV. Of course, they used to have the original Japanese version of American Ninja Warrior on, and like where they would have the what's now tasteless false translations of the people doing the course, but like that would have been a perfect beer drinking show back in the day if I was of legal age to be drinking a beer back then. But Jake, first of all, Jake, applause.
Yeah, Jake, kudos to you for this A+ question.
What a great in-flight question. And if you want to be like Jake and get a rare applause from Max and myself, you can submit those questions on Instagram. We take them every single week, but maybe you have a suggestion for a new show that we should be watching or an in-flight question. You can go to tvpilotslicense.com. You can also shoot us a text or leave us a voicemail at 213-290-1713. Before we talk about the history of Reacher, a quick word from our sponsor.
At California Closets, we design for the little things. Take this moment of a woman getting dressed for an early meeting while her husband's still asleep. Sorry. And now, the California Closets version of that moment, featuring custom soft close drawers. Bedroom and home storage solutions by designers who get you. California Closets. More room for what matters.
Well, Max, let's talk a little bit about the history of this show. This show has 3 seasons that are currently on Amazon and 24 episodes, but don't worry. Season 4 is on the way, and it is premiering very soon. As I said, you can find these all on Amazon Prime. And Max, you mentioned This is one of the things that I find so funny is when someone's just like, yeah, we built an entire town on a farm in the middle of Canada. And I'm like, we need these people making houses throughout America. If you're telling me you built a town in 30 days, let's build a house. Like, let's build these houses everywhere.
I mean, they are. Have you ever seen, like, the suburbs of Indianapolis?
Yeah, exactly. Carmel, Indiana. You know exactly what I'm talking about right now. Yeah, fun fact about the show. This was the most streamed TV series in February of 2022, right around when the show premiered, making it the first Amazon series to ever get that honor of being the most streamed series. There is a spinoff on the way. We did not meet the character on this episode, but it's just called Neegly. So whatever that is, I guess it's going to be on TV soon. Quickly, let's just talk about awards. This show has 16 nominations that led to 3 wins. And great awards like a Golden Tomato and an ACTRA and a Critics' Choice Super Award for a super guy, Reacher. But that is the brief and ongoing history of this show. And as our flight is starting to come to a land, Max, I have 2 questions for you. And the first question is, based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, do you want to find out what actually happened to Reacher's brother? Do you want to find out more about Jack Reacher and what happened in the Middle East? Or are you calling it quits and you'll never hear the music of Blind Blake? And then the second question is, we talked a little bit about the genre of what this is. This is dad book TV. And it very much right now exists in 2 places. It exists on Paramount Plus and it exists on Amazon. Do you think there's any world where this sort of TV could maybe exist on primetime television?
Me watching more of the show, that's the reach right there. That's the reach of Jack Reacher. I didn't know what to expect going into this. I thought that it was going to be much more of a bang bang shoot 'em up than what I got. I thought there was going to be more of a violent espionage element to it, and instead I got a very slow, cerebral, almost procedural drama starring the largest man I've ever seen. And frankly, I found it boring. I didn't think that it was all that engaging to watch. I mentioned the camera work already. And I think Alan Ritchson does a very serviceable job in the titular role. I think that he does lend a certain panache and humor to the character that I found enjoyable at times, but overall, this isn't sticking for me. I've also tried this genre a few times now. We did a CBS reboot procedural not too long ago in Hawaii Five-0, and I did not particularly enjoy that series either. I have not dipped my toes into the Taylor Sheridan universe since he stopped making great films for mediocre TV, and I was kind of unimpressed with this as well. I think there's obviously a market for this on prime time. I mean, it's half of what CBS does now, but none of it is for me. And I just am starting to think that there is an entire another world out there that's just not one that I'm going to find myself immersed in anytime soon.
Yeah, for myself, just to echo what I said previously, I think there are some really good performances with some very material in this show, and the performances are not going to outweigh what is happening. I'm going to need a lot more beers than one to be able to go for episode 2 on this. And unfortunately, I think that if I'm consuming this show, it might be in a vertical manner of okay, let me see it. Let me see this fight that happened in this episode. Cool. I know what happened or what I care about in this instance. As far as dad book TV, yeah, I think you put it really well. There is a universe, and not all TV is meant for me. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But as we're starting to go into the world where streaming is becoming the dominant force of us seeing new products and new ideas, I'm really hoping that we realize that dad books are dad books, and they're not everyone's a dad. Sometimes people just enjoy more culturally relevant things and things that aren't about being a former military person or someone who owns a bunch of land or someone who's in oil. Sometimes we just want to joke. But Max, that is this episode of TV Pilot's License, and we have come to a land. But before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find you wherever you want to be found. So Max, where can folks find you?
You can find me enjoying a cup of coffee and slice of pie at my local diner, and on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me reaching for another beer. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Jeff Run. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you want to see our smiling faces, you can see them on YouTube. And you can follow us on most social media platforms at TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about the show, maybe you want to be like Jake from Florida, you can submit those at tvpilotslicense.com. You can also go to 213-290-1713 and leave us a voicemail or shoot us a text. Make sure to watch out for some of the stuff that we have coming up. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial.
Reacher, why does trouble always seem to find you?
At California Closets, we design for the little things. Take this moment of a family getting ready to leave the house.
Where's my backpack?
Mom, I need my cleats.
My wallet was right here.
If I trip over these shoes one more time.
And now, the California Closets version of that moment. Entryway and home storage solutions by designers who get you. California Closets. More room for what matters.